level. This is
The Grove Podcast.
Hello, my name is Tabs and welcome to episode 119 of The Grove Podcast. Now, I hope you're doing well and, thank you for listening. Now, in terms of how we might all be feeling, well, it's never nice after we lose any game, particular big game, one against a big rival, with everyone watching and ready with their predetermined narratives and agendas. And add to the fact that we have 2 weeks of international break to dwell on the results. Things could be a little bit better, but it is what it is. And hopefully by talking about it, we can all start to feel a bit happier again. And as they say, a problem shared and all that. And joining me today to share our Arsenal problems is Jamie. How are you feeling? How are you doing?
I'm actually more peeved off now because I actually hadn't clocked the international break whatsoever. You know what I'm like? I don't really look more than about 3 days ahead, and I hadn't quite worked out that.
Yeah, sorry about that. Pay attention, lad. But yes, we got 2 weeks of dwelling on this and all that. But there we go. But maybe that it's transfer deadline day, so maybe we'll fill that with wondering how on earth we're going to piece everything together and so on. But we'll see. So look, in terms of today's show, we're of course going to chat about that close but ultimately frustrating 1-0 defeat to Liverpool. And as I said, it's the transfer window has slammed shut, as they say. What time we're recording? 7:55, so 55 minutes ago. But apparently they've got until 1 o'clock to get the paperwork done, and all we're talking about now is everyone's an expert in deal sheets. So there's stuff going through. But the latest news that we have heard, which is good news on two fronts for Arsenal, is one, the Gueye deal to Liverpool is off, which can only be a positive for us. And Hincapié has been signed, and that's official. And Vieira has been officially announced on loan at Hamburg or Stuttgart. No, I can't remember which one it is. Hamburg. Right, there we go.
Yep.
Hamburg.
Definitely
there we
Hamburg.
Go. Definitely Hamburg. Sorry, I lost track with all the number of clubs tracking him this window. So anyway, before we get started with the show, just a small favour to ask, as I do every now and then, is if you could spare a moment to follow, like, subscribe to the show, leave a rating, some nice comments on your podcast app. That would be greatly appreciated. It helps with getting the pod noticed and getting into the ears of others who aren't as fortunate as you are to be a listener. So if you could do that, that would be great. And that's enough of that. And let's get on with the show. So as we do, as is the format, Jamie, what was your highlight and low light from the Liverpool game?
Highlight, I'm perhaps going to pick a slightly odd one. I'm hoping I keep you on the really obvious one, but I'm going to go with the performance of Mosquera because my low light immediately tags along with it. So my low light, I'll say right away, was Billy Saliba going off as early as he did. Really hope that's not too serious, but the highlight for me was the fact that he stepped in as a, and I think it speaks to the fact he got a lot of good minutes over the summer. He seemed to really kind of be well integrated into the team and was in a position to be ready to fill that void, and didn't put a foot out of place really. And he's looked like that on all the occasions that we've seen him so far. So that's a really nice thing to see, because if we'd have lost William Saliba last season, you're panicking, right? You just are, and you're not expecting necessarily Kivior to do quite as well on that side as we would have had last season. So yeah, that was a really, really big positive plus for me.
No, and that wasn't obscure at all. I think there was sort of two clear highlights from yesterday, and I sort of got three here, and definitely Mosquera coming on was it. And he said, and we shouldn't be surprised to a certain extent. I mean, he's played 70 games, virtually never present, in La Liga for the last 2 seasons. You're right, he's played 3 of the 4 back 4 positions over the preseason. He's come on, I think, 1 game this season already, and you're right, he doesn't defensively. Definitely does not look out of place. He was not under any duress, any trouble yesterday. Defensively, yeah, I agree. He did a great job, and there wasn't anything that he did defensively that that I wish if that had been Saliba. I think the one thing is and this leads into potentially how we played, and we'll talk about it a bit later. But he doesn't offer the same going forward as Saliba does. So defensively, no problem. But as Saliba has been your centre of the three defenders that remain sort of practically in defence. He's very much your playmaker at the back. Not in the traditional sense, but he will start a lot of the plays. He'll be able to spray the ball out, and he's good with the ball going forward. So I think that was the only thing that we lost. But defensively, no issues there. And you're right. I had William Saliba's injury obviously as one of the lowlights, but I'll come on to my proper one in a minute. In terms of my highlight, I'll go with Madueke. I think he had a great game. He showed what he can offer, and the drop off from Saka, and particularly in terms of how Saka's been playing the last two games of the beginning of the season. It's not like he's been on form. He showed us what he can do and why we bought him, and all of a sudden all that talk from the summer and the cost and all the rest of it, I think there was a big realization. All right, okay, he had Goykeres on toast. Okay, maybe his end product wasn't quite there, but the endeavor, the effort, he was trying things, he was attacking things. He had that, he had it locked down, and I think maybe we could have made more use of him. So I think for me, my highlight was Madueke, because we just didn't feel the big loss of Saka so much, and I think he stood out as our best player, as our best attacking threat, and was unlucky on a couple of occasions not to get more out of it. The only unfortunate thing.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean the other highlight, actually, regardless of alongside his performance, is also the highlight of being able to say "fucking told you so" to a WhatsApp group full of Arsenal fans, where the vast majority of them were crying him. And I think two voices were loud and proud about the fact we thought this was a good signing, weren't we, Tabs?
Absolutely.
So I'm absolutely having that. I've got receipts. They're there. Bloody well told you so. So yeah. Genuinely, that was great to see, but it's really nice to see him actually winning people over. So it's the actual true highlight, rather than just me being big-headed about for once being right about signing. Like it is genuinely nice to see him winning fans over, on the internet and stuff as well, and people putting a bit of respect on his name, because hopefully that's the end of that now, and we can just everybody's fully behind him.
Yeah, definitely, and also. He worked. He was tracking back. He did the hard yards. He's not just like, he's not playing for Chelsea anymore. He's playing for a proper club and one he wants to play for, and for a manager he respects. And he did the backward stuff as well as the forward stuff. So yeah,
he was shouting the press a couple of times as well. I don't know if you saw it, but there were a couple of times where we lost possession high up, and he was shouting the press to Ricardo Calafiori. He was shouting a cover instruction once as well. That's the sort of stuff I really like to see as well, which is the stuff I was really impressed by with Mosquera over the summer as well, when he was playing in the friendlies. But I like the fact that clearly, that coaching team are very, very good at getting players to very quickly get up to grips with what's expected of them and understand positionally and tactically what they're supposed to be doing. And, again, deficiencies in somebody like Madueke doing that at Chelsea, that Chelsea team for a lot of the time he was in it was pretty rudderless, wasn't it? So, you judge it based on what happens when he comes and, works with a proper coach.
Yeah, indeed. The only unfortunate thing is he kept on winning corners on the wrong side of the pitch. The only thing is like, stop winning them on the right hand side, because I don't know what it was, but we had no left footer. Well, he could have taken. I don't know why he couldn't taken them. We knew Odegaard was not going to be playing this game. I think there was a big chance. So you know what? An extra 10, 20 minutes at the end of training. Can you go and take a few corners, please, Madueke? So we're not having to...
I think it's about the calls and the shouts and everything, though, isn't it? Because they've got these training ground patterns and routines and whatever, and it's all about the understanding of those as much as anything, right? It's that sort of quarterback notion, So,
I know, just aim for the...
You leave it to Decky to do his business, and he takes a load of outswingers, and none of them look anywhere near half as good as would be.
Just do what he should do. What I just tell my son at Sunday League is just get it in between the penalty area and the 6-yard box, and someone will head it. It's fine. So
you're auditioning as Nicholas Jover, there, are you, mate? Is
that
actually what he does? He's just largely nobody else has quite cracked it, but Nicholas Jover just says, "Oi, lads, just."
Corridor of uncertainty. You go.
I was down a park the other day, and I heard this old bloke telling his son,
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, well, look, I mean, it couldn't have been much worse. I mean, it's not, and that's not on Declan Rice. And look, without swingers, the theory is that you win the second ball. You don't win the first ball, but you win the second ball. Whereas in swingers, you win the first ball. Yada yada yada. But we took more outswingers yesterday, or we equaled the amount of outswingers in the first half that we took all last season.
Yeah.
And none of them look good. Then none of them look threatening. No, Liverpool obviously they are allowed to play, and we'll get to that. They are allowed to play. Yeah, we weren't playing just statues. So so it was just a interesting dynamic on the game that maybe you think maybe try something else and maybe see if there's a left footer in the team that could do that. Maybe not Marino because you need him for his height.
Thought, do you know what? Let's use it as an opportunity to
or
take
a short
bit
corner.
of a chance. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You haven't got Saka or Odegaard demanding the ball at that point.
Yeah.
Give it a go for something a little bit different. Didn't bloody work.
No, or take a short corner. I don't know. Anyway, it is what it is, and that wasn't the reason why we lost, but it was just an interesting dynamic. So, and look, in terms of your highlight, your low light, sorry, Saliba. So he's now been withdrawn from the France squad. Precautionary, worse than feared. I mean, they're playing Ukraine and Iceland, so not the hardest, but also not the easiest, and you'd expect them to want him to play. But also, I think France at centre backs are well stocked, so maybe it's just one of those ones. I've seen a video of him walking after the game through the mix zone. He wasn't on crutches; he was hobbling. But we've all twisted our ankles, so it's it's no fun. But it's maybe it is just a 2 weeker, and we don't want to risk anything.
Hasn't every top team in Europe got a French centre half? You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
There's enough of them out there. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't think they're struggling in that position. I would hope, as you say, it's just being overly cautious, and I guess hopefully he's going to be back not long after the international break, but we'll see.
Yeah. I think, and look, maybe we're learning our lesson from last year, and we're telling, just don't. You saw what happened last year, just don't. And maybe we've got such a strong squad, no one wants to go off because if they don't come back, how soon will they have how long will they keep their place for? He saw Mosquera play, so, and by all accounts, it happened in the warm up, and then we all watched with 2 minutes to go. It was like, oh, for crying out loud! And again, you worry that if it's that quick into a game, not knowing the history, it's a muscular thing. He's done something muscular again because what's he done in those 2 minutes? And they showed replays of the incident, and there was nothing there. So, but apparently he did it in the warm up. But he insisted that he was good to go, that he would play. Obviously, was a poor call.
I mean, it happens late in the warm up. You got to think there's going to be many times that you feel a bit of a twinge. You go into the dressing room, you sit down for a bit, you get yourself sorted, and you go back out and you play the entire game, and it's not an issue. I do think sometimes we can overanalyze these kind of moments like that and just go. He just obviously genuinely thought, no, I'm going to be all right with this. It isn't going to be an issue. And then he gets out there, he moves around, he tenses in a way that he hasn't been in the dressing room because he's on a football pitch and he's ready to explode at any given time. And literally, first time he kind of makes a slight turn, he gets it again, and that's it is what it is. But I don't think I don't hold any sort of blame there for medical staff for not intervening or whatever. You're not going to be able to go off for scans and stuff at that period of time. You just got to ask the player, and if the player says, "Balls, I'm a bit achy down there. Don't worry about it. It'll be all right," then you kind of have to go with that. I think
Yeah, maybe, I don't know. I'm sort of 50-50 on it, but yeah, I can see that. I mean, there was no restriction, so literally up until the ref blows his whistle, you can change without impacting your substitutes and all the rest of it. So there was no thing about it's too late to make the substitution, as in he can change it when impact substitute. You just need to take a player from the bench. That's all. So,
but also, I mean, I think we've talked about this before, and certainly the reading I've done into it myself that unless it's a tear and with the there are some things that you can make worse, but the vast majority of soft tissue injuries don't just get worse. You literally just have a playing on with them essentially is not always a risk of exacerbating the injury. And if it's in that position, then you're sort of entitled to give it a go, isn't it? And I suppose technically it takes sub break, but it's not as devastating as it used to be either. Back in the old days, you lose one of your 3 subs, that's a bit of a thing, isn't it? Whereas now, you've got 5 bloody substitutes you can make. So, the opportunity cost isn't tremendous either, right?
Isn't as impactful. Yeah, no, I get it. But again, as I said on the pod last week, and I posted on the social, can we just have some nice things that don't break? It's just that we've had the Havertz injury. Now we've got Saka, Odegaard, Ben White. You add to that Norgard, Jesus, obviously long term.
It's a ludicrous number for week 3, isn't it? Jesus Christ.
But in the last pod where we talked to Dr. Andrew Mitchell about that, all teams are suffering. All a lot of teams are suffering from injuries early on, but these are all different injuries. It's not like they're related to previous things. These are just all maybe Ben White is, but this is just. It's got to be just bad luck. I don't know. I don't know what. I think someone said. I think someone said in the group chat, are we just taking baseball bats to each other in training or whatever? It's like we're playing rollerball. I don't know if you know the reference. Yes. Yeah. We're playing rollerball in training just to toughen players up. But yeah, it's not overuse. It's not overplaying. It's just dumb luck and.
This is just high intensity, though. I mean, you look at the players are covering more distance than they ever have. They're performing more high intensity sprints than they ever have, and I wonder if that's a huge part of it. And also, there's almost that slight sort of over engineering of the body as well, isn't there? You become so lean and so little redundancy that
so fine tuned.
Yeah. I am no professional in these matters, but you look at it and just I think it's not even just this. You see it in a lot of American sports as well. The amount of soft tissue injury that seems to occur is just through the roof. And and rugby's another great example as well. That was a game when it was played by lumbering blokes who looked like they're unfit. Nobody really got injured unless they got literally.
They just run it off. It's just a broken leg. I'll run it off. It's
unless
fine.
something was hanging off, nobody was injured. Whereas now there are soft tissue injuries galore. You've got a guy like Darcy Graham who plays the wing for Scotland and Edinburgh, spends half his time injured. Like genuinely, his professional career, he's barely not been. And these are not impact injuries. He's a winger. He's barely being touched. His whole thing is not being touched. He has huge problems with strains and this and that, and it's all sort of soft tissue stuff. And it does feel like, unfortunately, if you get the sort of levels of performance that are out there in sport at the moment, it pushes people to a limit, right? And unfortunately, I think those limits are breached at times, and you just get a bit lucky in who it is and when it is.
Yeah.
And some, no doubt, are built to do that better. And some positions still don't play at quite the same high intensity, so you see less of them in those positions as well.
Yeah, and look,
certainly for the midfield and the wingers and the fullbacks, that's where we see them all, right? Yeah. Yes, it's Saliba this time, but the majority of the time, it's in
your more dynamic players.
Teams, it's the wide players the majority of the time, and those then playing in the centre of midfield as kind of pivots. They're the ones picking up those injuries, and it just feels to me, at least anyway, that we are unfortunately kind of in that spot where people just always will be in and out of injury,
But it's again, you don't mind the odd injury, but we get these cluster injuries, and it's not just I say bit part, but these are primary players. These are your first teamers, your starters. These are the real players that you want to take to Anfield. The likes of Havertz, Odegaard, Saka. Those are key players. You take Saliba out, and they're 4 players of any starting lineup. And
it's who you notice, but Reece Nelson was always injured.
But Fabio
Vieira. You go,
but Vieira, I don't care about them.
Fabio Vieira is always injured, and the Tommy Asu was always bloody injured.
And it was a big miss.
It's you notice the ones that are missing, don't you? And I totally agree. When you've got a few of them at the one time, and that's what I mean by you're lucky with who it is and when it is. And if you can only have one first team player out at a time, you're going to be
you take it
than when you have 5 out at one time, right? And that is what it is. But
but it's and look, obviously Arteta's been scarred by this, and we'll get on to transfers later. So look, we have built a squad now. We've got a squad to ensure that we don't have a repeat of last season where we've got kids on the bench against PSG. But if we keep losing a senior player at 1 per match, I think we're going to be screwed. We're going to be screwed pretty.
15-year-olds are banging. Have you not seen them? They're brilliant. It's not a problem, mate. You just put them out the local schools these days. It's not an issue.
And also it's the one thing and thing about yesterday again. So I think we have the squad to to cope to a certain extent. Like I said, now Madueke comes in, Saka doesn't play. We have Mosquera in for Saliba, but it's where's the impact there afterwards? So if Saka's not, if you got Havertz for Goykeres, Saka, Madueke, White, Timber, Odegaard, Ethan, Moreno. But if those primary players like Saka, Havertz, White, and Odegaard aren't out, when you want to change something up in the game, then that's when you really start to notice it. And in big games when you don't have that change up, if you've got Saka and then Saka goes off, Madueke comes on, great, no drop. If you got Havertz would have started yesterday and he comes off after running himself silly, Goykeres come on, that's great. That's where a lot of the impact comes in. And look, not going to make excuses for yesterday, but it would have been nice just to go there and face them team to team, head to head, our strongest team versus their strongest team, to see how we would get on. And it's just a bit frustrating where you just don't give yourself, and we still hold ourselves up well, and we still go in there and get and play pretty well, but it just makes it just that much harder. And you take the likes of Salah, Virgil van Dijk, Ekitike, McAllister out of the Liverpool team, don't think they're holding up the same. So, we seem to be held up to higher standards compared to other teams. They're allowed to have excuses and we're not. But there we go. Such is life. But my primary low light for me, and I think we've been here before, but is just the dumb, lazy, predetermined agendas, the results-driven narratives, and the so-called analysis by the likes of Neville and Carragher, even Peter Schmeichel. What was he on yesterday? Young Arga Fjortoft and numerous commentators and media outlets
you
saying
should
that.
Never listen to Jan Arga Fjortoft, mate. I mean, just no.
Well, I don't listen, but it was just a tweet he put on, and basically all saying the only team that wanted to win and went for it was Liverpool. And we weren't, and we were there not to lose, and it's just utter bullshit. I mean, the champions Liverpool were at home, full strength bar a right back, and actually I think they lucked out there. They found their TAA replacement in front of that famous Anfield crowd against the team Arsenal depleted in attack, defender going down within minutes, and they go on to produce only 0.51 xg. And they had fewer final third passes than us, fewer crosses, fewer touches in the opposition box than us. And they win by a worldy free kick. And Arsenal are the ones accused of being too cautious, too cowardly, not going for it. And, as we talked about just before, our injured players being out, no one mentions that. Who else goes to Liverpool and goes and takes them on and beats them? And it's like, I don't know. Yeah, just like, as I say, we seem to be held to a higher standard. They ignore the context around the squad. I mean, we didn't go to park the bus. We didn't cede possession or territory. We struggled to make impact where we wanted an attacking sense, but we made sure we went out of it. And we didn't go and defend and sit back either. Which is what proper cautious teams do. So I shouldn't get wound up by it. And
also, we made an attacking substitution on 70 prior to them scoring, right? So we brought on Odegaard and Eze for Martinelli and Moreno. That is an attacking substitution at that point, because Odegaard over Moreno is a player that 100%. That's us looking to go and get a goal. So
exactly, it was all part of the tactics.
Really lazy as well, and I think as well. I mean, I think the worst that I saw was them bringing up a stat on Match of the Day when I watched that this morning. I was doing a bit of work and I had to rewind it to watch him again. That they brought up a stat about our XG over the first 3 games, and it being only second worst only at Sunderland. But they did so devoid of the context that our opening 3 games have been like, yes, there was the Leeds one in between, but we were at Old Trafford on the first game, which was high intensity, slightly ridiculous game, and then our third game is at Anfield. Like it's just all a little bit silly. It's
small
like,
sample size.
You can't bring that up and not go. But they were away at Old Trafford and Anfield for 2 of those games, and that's what annoyed me about that is like the way that you don't even acknowledge the most simple of kind of points just to acknowledge that alongside it, and then you also don't bring up alongside that either what the XG against was during those games, which
exactly.
I'm fairly sure we're probably in the in the top 3 for XG against. It's about
Yeah,
balance, isn't it?
A-
And like,
and
unfortunately,
it was
one
only
coming with the other.
and it was only open play XG. It wasn't complete XG either. So
Yeah,
it's like they frame the narrative however they want to do to paint the picture they want to do. And look, people do it on both sides, and you can use stats to justify anything. And it's a bit like the Raya comment. Raya, like Arteta last year, just made a sensible response to a question about the football, and at no way when they're showing his response do they actually say, and this was the question asked. All they're showing is, oh, we need to get used to the ball. But yeah, he was asked. Yeah, he was asked a genuine, what do you think of the ball? We need to get used to it. That's it. It's just like a genuine response. And it's just like, yeah, they just, so basically it's just all, it shouldn't wind me up. I should ignore them, but it's hard and these are the people there, you know, I don't know how many people watch, maybe millions of people watching, listening, and then other people's narratives get driven just by their bollocks. And then that feeds into it. And we should just ignore it, but it's just disingenuous stuff. And then the alternative is, like, stats show that this was one of Liverpool's worst attacking performances in years. Now, look, I know people say it doesn't matter because they won, and that's fine, you know. But they didn't win because they were better than us. They didn't win because they were mentally stronger, wanted it more. It's what champions are made of. They went for it, or whatever bullshit they spouted. You know, they won because of a piece of set piece excellence, and that's it. But you know, loads of the stats say
not going to get them called set piece FC though, are we?
no, but it's fine. It is what it is, and look, it's hard. The thing is, it's hard to get away with because we pay a lot of money, and this is what we get served up. So you know, I was actually trying to find the Arsenal commentary for this, but I don't know if there was one because I just didn't really want to listen to Neville. So it was just like, anyway,
I didn't mind him on the day, to be honest, but you know, I didn't think it was that egregious. But I think, yeah, what you get is
no, it's the ad hoc,
once
it's
there's
the
so
post hoc
many of
stuff.
them, they then go alongside all of the much louder and more ridiculous voices as well, don't they? But
Yeah.
I mean, half the time it feels like it's just the guys that are on Sky and whatever offend me slightly less because they're made to talk about the match for half hour afterwards and 15 minutes half time or whatever, and got to have an opinion. The ones that annoy me more are those that do so in the sort of the post game on the content channels and whatever, where, to be completely frank, they should, you know, have the time to be more nuanced, but also just don't need to talk in the first place. But you know,
But yeah, you've even got like Barney Ronay in the Guardian, who can be quite a funny writer and stuff like that. Again, oh, why didn't you go for it, Arteta? I said, well, why didn't fucking Slot go for it, for God's sake? You know, it's just results driven narrative, and they ignore context, they ignore things just to prove a point. And as I said, you know, we didn't go there to park the bus. We didn't go there to cede possession. We didn't, you know, go there, etc. Yeah, it was a very even game. We'll get onto our thoughts later. And it just, yeah, one piece of excellence undid us. So, yeah, and you just want people to think, you know, rather than just say they just want to drive something. So there we go. It's it's the life of an Arsenal fan. And once you get and until we win the Premiership, basically, until we win something big, they'll always find a stick to beat us with. So that's what we need to do: go and win something big. Right. As for the game itself, so the lineup: so Raya, Timber, Saliba, Gabriel, Calafiori at the back, Rice, Zubimendi, Merino in the middle, and Madueke, Goykeres, Martinelli. So look, we've talked about the injuries. So what did you make of that? So the big decisions were Merino for Odegaard, and then I guess not Martinelli on, but Eze not on.
midfield and left wing, basically, isn't it? Let's
Yeah.
face it. They're the two question marks. For me, I wasn't a huge fan of it before the game.
Okay.
I know I've been a huge fan of Mikel Merino many a time, but I don't like the idea of him kind of playing in that kind of midfield in that kind of game. I just felt like I was looking at the way that we set up and just thinking I can imagine a huge gap here between that midfield. He'll be very solid and keep the ball well and be very good, but ultimately I just see way too much of a gap between the front three and those three, because as great as Rice is with link up play and his progressive play, you still ask. It's more about when you're off the ball for me, or at least when you're not in receipt of the ball, and that was a worry for me. So that was the first thing, especially probably more so that it's Martinelli and Madueke up top as well, where Martinelli would drop very deep to defend, but he'll look to attack pressing high and pressing very, very wide most of the time. And the same then with Madueke, they'll attack from very wide positions. Nobody's coming inside and using those half spaces. So that was the main thing for me, was just looking at kind of going, who the hell's in the half space there? Because it's not Havertz either. It's Goykeres.
No.
So just nobody that you see in that team is in the half space. And actually, as it happens, it seems like Riccardo Calafiori quite fancied being there a fair amount of the time. But yeah, that was my big concern going into it. And I would have really loved to have seen Nwaneri in the team, and a huge show of faith in him. Obviously, Eze is the other option. You go straight to him. I can completely understand why you don't after a week in the club. I think that's just, quite sensible the majority of the time. But yeah, I'd have probably liked to have seen Ethan given a go myself. But I could also see the reasons for it, and that is that you're then going in with a fantastically solid midfield against the Liverpool team that have struggled when they're outnumbered in midfield. So I also understand why you might say that, and you go, well, look, we're gonna push Merino and Rice up into those half spaces as much as possible. But my issue is more so that I don't think Merino does anything in those half spaces.
No.
So, and I think that sort of bore out a little bit for me. I thought we were really good, but ultimately in midfield. But ultimately, we did look a little bit blunt in midfield as well. And yeah, that was my concern. So,
Yeah.
And then the other thought obviously was on the left. To be honest, I'm sort of a bit Martinelli, Trossard. Most of the time, I'm not Trossard's biggest fan. I think,
I think he was also potentially injured as well. I think he was just making the numbers up. I'm not sure he'd ever got on. So
he's
break in case of emergency.
The problem with Trossard is you have the games where he just doesn't affect in any way, shape, or form, and then you have the games where he's absolutely magic. I'm probably going to go Trossard the majority of the time for the simple reason that we haven't seen a Martinelli magic game in quite some time. And unfortunately, he was absolutely dire throughout the game. I think but by a long shot, the worst performer on the pitch, probably out the two sides, unfortunately. Yeah. So that was very unfortunate, and it's been the subject of plenty of other people's discussion, but it's got to be acknowledged. And then, so yeah, that was the other option. Eze could have played there. Obviously, I wish he had played there from the start, maybe, but. Again, I totally understand why he wasn't from day one. So it wasn't a huge question mark from me. I wasn't sat there clambering for him in any way, shape or form. I just was a little bit worried from the outset about how that three-man midfield was going to be able to affect the game in some of our phase play.
Yeah, I mean, for me, yeah, I don't know. I think it's all about it's all to do with our game plan and our tactic, and I'll get onto that in the end. So I think it made sense. It made sense once the game started and once you got going, but also before the game made sense. We saw against Newcastle, Liverpool struggled against a very physical midfield on the Monday. So you got Merino, strong, more physical, big in the duels. He's also experienced. He's like he's a winner in international tournaments and stuff like that. So you've got that there. You got to respect that and what he can do, what he does, versus putting in an 18-year-old who's only just started to find that position, that Odegaard role. And he came on and did nice against Leeds, but it was Leeds and we're winning 3-4-0. Do you start him against the Liverpool side? And against Liverpool side, so it's
Jack Wilshere at the Emirates against Barcelona.
Yeah, well, of course, yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
That's Arsene, but that's Arsene Wenger.
Do you trust the boy? I would have liked to have seen him have that bit.
Yeah.
And maybe a part of that as well is a little bit inside of me saying as well, Odegaard is probably back from fitness in a bit, and Eze's there, and I want to see him show a bit of faith in him. But I just was a little disappointed without necessarily thinking, and I always say this, without thinking I know better than Mikel Arteta.
Well, no, I mean, and look, we know Arteta is maybe a bit more cautious, and maybe goes, well, he is and he isn't. I mean, we'll get onto it later, but let's go into it now. Who did he put on with 8 minutes to go? He put on Max Dowman, a 15-year-old. Yeah, he didn't put on Nwaneri. So
I think the other option would have been as well. Madueke goes to the left and Nwaneri goes on the right. If I'm totally going back over the game, there's a high chance that I did. I mean, I would have put Miles Lewis-Skelly on the left, to be honest. I'm finding any potential way
not to have Nelly
else on the left. But that, I mean, in all seriousness, that was another option, though, isn't it? And that is another option that should present itself. And I know that they see Nwaneri more as a central attacking midfield player, and fair enough. I can get that, but he showed quite a few times last season he could deputise really well on the right.
Yeah, well, maybe this is the thing. Then maybe they've gone in. No, you're a central midfielder now, and we're now going to give those minutes that you might have had on the wide right to Dowman. So who knows? To thinking we don't see what goes on in training. Who knows? But so in terms of giving players chances, I think it's down to the player who he's giving the chance to, not that he doesn't give players chances. He's playing a 15-year-old away at Anfield with 8 minutes to go, and we need to get a goal. So he will do it based on what he thinks is best. And in terms of Nelly, he's had good performances at Anfield. I think he's scored there. He always seems to have done well. You know, we're thinking Szoboszlai at right back. We could take advantage of that. You know, Nelly would be a threat behind. Yeah, we'll talk about him there. But yeah, he just
defended really well. I'll give him,
he did. Yeah,
which is effectively what he's become now, is like a defensive winger. You know.
Yeah, well, he's their new TAA. He's sort of they've just lucked on a. We lucked out on MLS last year. They've lucked out on.
Well, no, I meant sorry, Martinelli. I said.
Defensively, yeah, but
you know, which he always does. And again, he tried. I kind of hate slagging him because he does try. His effort is never not there. But
yeah, no, I think we all do that, and I think we love him because of the way he came through. But something's not right. He's plateaued. He's in his own head. He's not flowing.
His regressed is the problem. He hasn't plateaued. That's the major issue. He hasn't plateaued. He plateaued at some point, and then since then he's regressed, and that's a major concern. And he's in his head. I'm sure he is, but unfortunately, I think he's got a mental fragility. If that's the case, because to be frank, in this team with the role he's played over the last few seasons, he should be buoyant. You know, and it's not as simple as that. Human mentality is not as simple as that. We all know that.
Yeah, it's not linear.
I'm sure most of us have all had periods of underconfidence professionally and all sorts. But nonetheless, there is a problem there, and it gets to the point where you think you need to reset. But
yeah. I mean, I think he's maybe been a victim also of our left-hand side issues versus right-hand side, but he hasn't maybe grasped the issue by the neck. He hasn't got, right, I'm going to solve it like this. So instead of progressing and taking forward and taking ownership, he sort of like let it happen to him, and then he's sort of now lost in his. Yeah, there was that one moment on 10 minutes, and you could just hear the collective sigh of Arsenal fans throughout the world. That one moment, everyone's reaction was exactly the same. Where going through, Goykeres makes the run, and you've got that moment. You've got to make that pass then and then, and he doesn't. So fine, if you're not going to do that, then you need to do something and get some end product. And instead, runs the ball out, goal kick. And it was just like the
only thing I could think is that he was looking for Goykeres to pull off the shoulder, open up a space, and him drive inside. But then what he does from there,
yes, that's the problem.
No sense if that's what he's trying to do.
Well,
so it just always feels like he's caught in two minds, and he picks the wrong option, and that. And he picks the safest option, and it, whether that is I'm on the edge of the box and I'm going to pass backwards to the left back, or whether it is I'm going to race it down the flank when actually the play it's on for me to go through the middle. It's just bizarre, and it's really really hard to watch because the talent's still there. But we used to call him the moment of chaos, didn't we? And he doesn't really provide any chaos anymore. Is the issue?
Yeah. So that I think that one piece summed him all up. That yesterday summed him up basically. Did really well defensively. There was one moment where he was the one chasing back because Calafiori is out of position or left up, and he did great. But then going forward, no end product. And you're right. We like, but maybe we've outgrown him. You know what? Sometimes teams outgrow the player, and if the player doesn't grow with them and adapt, then doesn't stop them being a good player. He just stands out compared to everyone else. And I think, let's see, because he may then become a great impact player. Maybe, right, he comes on for the last 20 minutes with his energy and his effort. I think it was Palace last year. I think he got a couple of goals or something like that. 20 minutes to go, energy over the top. He maybe becomes an impact player. We just maybe need to sit him down and just like say, you're playing for your career here now. What are you going to do? Yeah. So it's a toughie. We're not going going in on him hard. We hate to see it. We'd love him to come to progress with the team, but it's down to him now. And I think he's on his last opportunity. And otherwise, yeah, I'm not too sure what's going to happen to him. So let's just see. And there we go. So I mean, in terms of how the game went, how it played out, how we played, what was your just general thoughts on the game, on the performance?
I thought, overall it was a good performance. It was a pretty confident display in the first half. We were very, very composed. We were very calm. I really enjoyed, as I say, the individual performances of a few. Madueke really, really stood out. I loved the way I liked the way that we hit him with early balls quite a bit, and let him have a go at his fullback. That was really exciting to see, because they played to his strengths a bit there, and tried to get him in those isolated 1v1 positions where he was up against the best left back in the Premier League last season, and he skinned him a few times, and he worried him a few others, and each time Goykeres feels like he's living on a prayer a little bit. So that was great. That was absolutely brilliant, and certainly I thought, in the midfield, I've seen mixed reviews of Zubimendi. I thought he played really well.
Yeah, me too.
I thought there was that absolutely bizarre moment where he seemed to be riding a Liverpool player, and I don't know what the hell was going on, but that was quite funny. And also I thought, Declan Rice had a good game. I thought everybody in the midfield and the defence played really well. I thought I did feel like we were missing somebody in those half spaces. I had no qualms about that. But we knew that going into the game. That was a tactical decision, and actually it bore out that we were doing pretty well without it for the first half, just without quite being able to get that bit of penetration. But it's got to be said, Liverpool's centre-half pairing absolutely turned up, right? I mean, they've looked shaky at times. Konate was excellent yesterday, and Van Dijk was absolutely imperious, and probably the best player on the pitch over the 98 minutes or whatever it was. So, overall, I come out of that game going confident, composed game at Anfield is not something we've actually got to see very often. We did not look scared of them despite having quite a few of our attacking talents out. And for that, I think you've got to kind of take the positives. The minus side is that I do think we struggled to impose ourselves towards the end of the game, where we really needed a little bit more quality at times, and kind of better final balls, stuff like that, and just sort of the composure seemed to seep away a little bit when it was actually needed more later on in the game. So that's the negative, but it's not a huge one. To lose to an absolute freak goal. Well, not a freak, but just a
worldie.
Absolute worldie. For which I absolutely will not be having the David Raya did anything wrong whatsoever. I think the goalkeepers union spoken up quite well on that. It's a worldie, and it's beating him. I come out of it going, I can take that. I don't like the result. Of course, I don't like the result, but I can take the performance and go, that's fine. We're still a big game team. We just didn't quite have it in us today to be able to get it over the line.
Yeah. I'll give my take, and then I've got a couple of questions for you, just based on the not quite the narrative, but the other side of the coin that I've seen a lot. I mean, for me, there are two quotes from either manager that were done independent of each other that sum the game up, and I think I'm not a big fan of praising other managers and the rest of it, and Slot winds him up a bit. But also, yesterday he got it spot on, and he said, if we play this game 10 times more in the same fashion, then I think it's 8 times a draw, Liverpool win 1 time, and Arsenal win it 1 time, which is absolutely correct. And Arteta also said afterwards, we didn't do our game plan to frustrate them, we did it to win it. Okay, and I get that fully. And then he goes on to say, I think we elevated the game and the dominance to a point that they had to raise it. They did, especially from 60 to 78, when then you could see that there were no margins in the game. When that happens, the game is going to be decided in 2 ways. 1, with an individual error, and 2, with a magic moment. Szoboszlai created a moment that was incredible, that has won the game, and that was the difference, nothing else. And both those two are absolutely spot on. Great assessments of the game and call it out. And that's for me. And look, for me, both teams cancelled each other out with neither side. And in essence, neither side was wanted to let the other side have the game they wanted. So we didn't want a basketball game, high transition game where Liverpool would flood the attack, but they also didn't want us to sort of dominate possession, dominate the park, play the ball around and exploit the spaces behind the defence. So because both teams were not letting the other team have their game, which they want, then it became a very tight, sort of cageous sort of game, and I think caution from both sides. And this is why I said the narrative about us being cautious. Liverpool, as I said, weren't pulling up any trees either, and we shut down Salah. Wirtz, I think, still finding his feet, so I'm not going to go big on him, but he didn't do much special. Ekitike didn't do anything. But then, likely on our side, we couldn't find Goykeres. Our threat was Madueke, but they also control things well. And our plan, and this comes back to, and this is why I was saying about Arteta saying we didn't do our game plan to frustrate, we did it to win it. Our game plan seemed to be in it at around 70 minutes and take it from there. There's no point going there and then being out of the game, because this is Liverpool. For me, this is Liverpool away. We get there 70 minutes, and then, as you said at the beginning, we then went attacking. We're in it, and then we brought on Eze and Odegaard at 70. That's not cautious. That's a game plan. That's a tactic. That's, now we're going to go for it. Not quite rope-a-dope, but it's like, and I get a lot of people's frustrations may have around that approach, but I can't be too critical, and I can't connect with those going big on why weren't we more adventurous, because I could see what we were trying to do, and also given who we had at our disposal. So, this game was destined for a 0-0. This was destined for a draw, and we were just outdone by a perfect moment, a 1 in 100 shot, and fair play to him, great strike. But for me, I was happy with that game plan. I could see it, how it was panning out. Yeah, of course, there's areas we could do better. Of course, there's areas we can improve. Of course, there's, we have chances, and stuff like that. But, it's margins. And can you agree with that? Were we too cautious?
I can probably as well maybe, compare it a little bit to a lot of those not great games that were won by absolutely great teams that played against another great team when you see them in European Cup finals and World Cup finals, right? And we've seen a bunch of them in European Cup finals and so on. We've seen a bunch of them that have been like 1-0s or gone to extra time or whatever, and they haven't been great games. And it feels like nobody, and you watch as a neutral and you're there kind of going, nobody's taking this by the scruff of the neck or whatever, And it probably had a little bit of that. And what you tend to see with those, the commonality between that and this game is that these are two teams that are very, very, very bloody good and really quite settled with the incomings that admittedly, they've got a few incomings, we got a few of them, but I mean more settled in terms of the fact that, their manager's been there 12 months and has got certain continuations on for a manager that was there for, 10, 12 years or whatever he was, Klopp. We're nice and settled now with Mikel Arteta. We both believe in our teams. We've both got a lot of talent out there on the pitch. And ultimately, sometimes when you have those games, it does feel a bit rope-a-dope. It does feel a bit like, exactly as Mikel articulated, you're waiting for the special moment or the individual mistake. And that is something that you see in a lot of games between two really kind of top of their game teams. And, there aren't that many of them in the Premier League at a given time. Last season, there was only really one team on the top of its game for the entire season, which was Liverpool. To be completely honest, of the top teams, that is, you might argue Forest were at the top of their game for 7 months or whatever.
But I know what you mean.
But if we're talking about, real top fantastic teams, we were missing people throughout the season. Had a really disrupted season. City had a really disrupted season. Liverpool were the only team out there doing what they were doing. And in previous seasons, we have gone up at the top of our game with a lot of talent to City and folded, right? And then we got to a stage where we actually started going and winning those games and being better than the other team. And we're at that point now. And Liverpool have been at that point for quite a long time. And they've recovered from that one freak season they had where they weren't very good. And we're just two really phenomenal teams, the margins between which are very, very, very fine. they go in with a bit of an advantage because they're at Anfield, and maybe they've got an injury or two less than us, and we held ourselves up to be measured for the entire match, and we came up a little bit short, not on quality, not on effort, and I don't think necessarily tactically. I think we just came up short on the day. It's one of those on the day things, and I'm kind of content with that.
There was a lot of criticism I've seen. I've been back and forth with a couple of people. Just it was a missed opportunity. I think they feel like that their defence was there for the taking. It's a missed opportunity. If we'd have gone for it, then maybe we'd won it. But also, we've gone for it. We've done it before. We get spanked 5-1, and we get spanked, and all the rest of it. And then we've got limited options to sort of rectify it. I don't know. Do you, what about that side? Do you feel it was a missed opportunity, or are we reading too much into, again, a couple of games where Liverpool have gone 2-0 up and then they've let in 2 goals, but ultimately they win because that's the game that they want. So
they love an open game, though, don't they?
Yeah,
they absolutely love an open game. And if you go toe to toe with them at Anfield, when you're missing a couple of the guys that you need to go toe to toe, then it's a danger. It's a massive risk. And maybe we do win that game sometime. I have a lot of belief in a lot of the guys that were out there that they can hurt them. But another positive. What did Salah do?
Well, yeah.
Right, this is the record-breaking man that nobody's been able to shut the fuck up about for the last year, and he did nothing. Right, you have to think, as soon as you open up that game, you've got Mohamed Salah there, the record-breaking Mohamed Salah, etc.
Yeah.
So the risk is there massively because they have got a couple of the best individual talents on the planet. And they do really, really like an open match. So I would agree. I think you are playing into their hands a bit. Even if we'd have gone out and had an Ethan in the side or whatever, I would not be expecting us to treat this like it's going out and playing, Sunderland or Leeds or whatever. It's not that. You're always going to go up there and have a measure of caution. And it's one of those games where the concentration levels are ridiculously high. Right, and that again is that comparison I'll make to the cup finals. It is like that in so much as that you have got to be absolutely on it every single second because the amount of individual talent that's posted around those teams is just, stupidly high.
Yeah. No, it's a tough one. I said not saying there's no way that we can't improve, and maybe we couldn't do better, and I think we'll get onto that now, but. In terms of missed opportunity and in terms of we're too cautious, is his negative tactics and stuff like that. I find it hard to get along with that. I can understand why people may think it. I just can't. It's just not where I am with this. And I can see, as you said, just 2 very good teams cancelled each other out. Moment of brilliance, job done. And that's why a lot of those big games end 1-0. Because that's all it takes, that 1 minute, and it's then very hard to counter that. And I think that first half, I think we were the better team, and I think we had the better chances and the more dominant team. But there was nothing clear cut. I think he said even throughout the whole game, there were no big chances. And in the first half we had six shots, but it was still only 0.31 xG, one on target. So. It was the 5 corners all from the wrong side that we didn't take advantage of, and then second half. We seemed to drop off, and maybe sort of Arteta was surprised how well his plan was working, and maybe didn't think he had to change anything, and I think this is so basically it's the second half. I think where the fault and the criticism is main is the timing of the substitutions. So and it was around 60 minutes where the Anfield was quiet. This famous Anfield roar. It was deadly silent throughout the whole game. We shut them up. But around 60 minutes, there wasn't even anything in the game. They just started to get behind the team, and they started to get momentum, and they were just building that momentum. And I think that's when potentially Arteta should have reacted and say, right, okay, now's the time to change things up. And he did it against Man United at 60 minutes. So it's not, but we've seen in the past where he maybe takes too long to make substitutions. So I think where a lot of the criticism lies is that we maybe let them build that momentum too long. I can see from Arteta's point of view, well, it's still 0-0, and he got to 0-0 at 70 when he made the substitutions. But I think maybe that moment had gone, and Liverpool were in on that roll, and I think maybe we could have done something to change that earlier. So it wasn't the change that he made was wrong; it was the timing. And I think a lot of people are saying, well, he's done this last year. He'd always make his substitutions too late, and it doesn't change anything. And that's where I think a lot of the frustration, a lot of the idea about cautiousness was there, but I can understand why. So that was it. And then on 83, and they didn't score their goal until the 83rd minute. And I think the other thing, I think we had players starting to flag. I don't think Marino's a 90-minute player. I think Goykeres is not fully fit. Timber's not fully fit. I think we had players flagging as well. So again, just the changes, just the timing, just needed a bit of tweaking. I think. So I don't know how, but yeah, that seems to me that 15, 20 minutes there was it. That was the game.
I think for me at least, anyway. Yeah, I totally get what you mean. I remember the moment very much, where it just seemed to flick a little bit. There seemed to be a little bit of a change in energy. But I think part of that as well is that I think, put myself in Arteta's shoes, you probably want to see slots changes first. You want to see who's he bringing. Are they going to change the shape of Liverpool and then react to that potentially? He always seems to me quite keen to kind of see that. And I know that that's definitely a school of thought around a lot of coaches, is to kind of wait it out, see what's in front of you, and then make your change, so that you're affecting the game that's in front of you rather than a game that's potentially going to change behind you effectively. And I think when you're away from home at Anfield, that's kind of quite understandable, because you could, make your attacking choice, bring on the two guys that are going to try and play in the spaces a little bit more, and potentially then, Arne Slot decides to do something a little bit different, change the shape altogether, and he's kind of seen what you're doing, and it feels a little bit like a bit of a chess match in that respect, right? And I think that's how a lot of modern substitutes are, especially with how many you get to make now. So yeah, that's kind of the way that I read it, is that the justification, I suppose, that I could have is that you might want to see those substitutes went on, you give them 5 minutes, because you don't know just by who the substitute is whether that's going to change the shape one way or not these days, because players play in such a variety of positions now. It's not as simple as bringing on a Ray Parlour and knowing, all right, well, he's going to go on right midfield then, isn't he? You see what's going on, you see what that shape looks like, and then you go, okay, this is what I'm going to do to address that. And that I think is the justification that I could see for it. And if it were the justification, then I'd fully back it, because I feel like that's quite sensible,
Yeah, and maybe people don't like the sensible approach. That's the thing. We do have. We are a sensible team. I feel, but when we've got all our players all firing, doesn't matter how sensible we are. We can outscore anyone. So that it's only, and this is where it sort of seems to be, is like, because of the result, all of a sudden that approach then becomes criticised. Whereas I said, I was happy with it, and even then, look, Liverpool made their changes, and it didn't make. I think Jones did all right when he came on, and I think he changed up Liverpool, and Liverpool did play up, but still,
free kick, didn't he? That was
but they still didn't create anything. Again, second half wise, they had 7 shots to our 5, 3 on target to our 0. No big chances, so no one really created anything. And even the shots that they had, I was seeing like the XG stats. Again, they weren't big they weren't easy chances. They were sort of like maybe speculative, or loads of people in front of goal. So there was nothing there. But I said they got the free kick. Yeah, 30 yards out. Zubimendi takes plays the percentages. Okay, look, if I foul him 30 yards out, fine, we level set how many times they score from here, and it's quite central. So
it's a good foul.
It's a necessary foul. You expect him to.
It's a perfectly good foul. You take that one all day.
Yeah, and look, he hits it well. Curls away. Fine, if David Raya grew a foot and a half, and he would be able to save it. But off the post,
Raya grows a foot and a half. He's not getting across his goal quite so quickly. He's not agile and springy, is he? That's what it is.
It is what it is, and stuff like that. But there was still plenty. There was still time to get in the game, and look, from 83rd onwards, it was all Arsenal. We were the ones trying, and there was that one chance Eze breaks into the box, and true Arsenal heritage. He waits and he waits and he
It
waits,
was frustrating, wasn't it? I've got
and then
it's not the best
just
entry
shoot.
for him, unfortunately. That he looked good in the moment, and I'm going, oh, this is it. He's gonna go. And to be honest, I mean, he could have played it across as well. I think he could have just put a little bit of lift on it, and I sort of thought he's just looking for the keeper to make more of a move than he is. Right? That's what it looked like.
Yeah, maybe, but then he just got too close, and it wasn't a foul, and so that was. Yeah, that was you can see he's a proper Arsenal player after that. So, and then as I said, Arteta on 89, he made that interesting sub, bringing on Dauman instead of Manweri, taking Madueke off. I know it seemed a bit odd. Look, I didn't. We saw Dauman in pre-season attacking and winning penalties, and he looked direct. And maybe we just wanted that direct about Goykeres, who's knackered. I don't know. I just think imagine how Nwaneri feels today, given that he scored 9 goals last season, can make a difference. I guess it depends what he wanted tactically from Dauman. Maybe it was a hit and hope. I don't know, but it was just a bit odd.
Going into the fullback is the idea, isn't it?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he looked a little bit like it was the first time that he looked a bit like a boy for me, to be honest, when he came on it. But it's a hard game for him to try and affect, and you give him a go. Arteta's talked how much he has about the faith that him and the other players have in him. So you give the lad a shot, right?
Yeah.
And I think that probably does, and for me, that probably is the confirmation that Leo isn't fully fit, because I think that would have been a Leo substitution in the vast majority of games, right? So,
and Nwaneri is central only because, penny for his thoughts, as they say, penny for his thoughts.
Yeah. Again, and maybe you're right about this whole thing about they want to give the right wing minutes to Dauman and the centre midfield minutes to Nwaneri, but certainly, given what Nwaneri comes on against Leeds and does really well, added a lot of energy and a lot of kind of a fair bit to the attack. I am surprised that you're not seeing Ethan come on in that particular situation. I guess the one thing maybe is that Dauman has showed quite a few times is that he's at that point we're playing against a very compressed defence. There's not a great deal of space. And he absolutely thrives on a lack of space, is what we have seen. He does really well in those very, very small pockets of space with fantastic control and largely winning penalties. So, perhaps that was the plan then. It was like, well, we are going to be true set piece FC. We've gone from winning corners to winning pens.
Yeah, I think Arteta forgot he was at Anfield. Anyway, so, look, 1-0. It was it. I mean, before we just get onto that, losing our Big Six record and losing a game. The other highlight I was going to call out, or one player that stood out, Calafiori. I think best game for us defensively. Salah got nothing out of him. We're all worried about that, and he's looking bigger, better, stronger. I think he took the most amount of shots, along with Madueke, 3 each, and he's such a good, positive player. So different to anything we've got.
Very good opportunity, actually. I will say, I thought that was a decent one that came to him at one point.
Yeah, and look, he's stepping up in defence well, so we're starting to not worry so much about that. So all I have to ask is, when's he going to get injured? So.
I mean, I'll tell you now, I am absolutely getting sold on him. I think I was very. I'm not cold on that. I think he's a fantastic talent. I've just always doubted that he's a left back.
He's not a left back. He plays for Arsenal. He's all over the bloody place.
But he's, in fairness to him, I think if you're looking for your most impressive performers over the first 3 games of the season, he's right up there, right?
Yeah.
Very, very, very good. And and we don't mind he's got injured. We've got him sign some mad fella from Germany instead now, so it's not an issue.
No, indeed. And look, at the end of the day, and unless you're invincible, we will lose games, throughout the season. That's it. And each loss will be frustrating, and you'll always be able to find fault. We can find fault with this easy, and I think we have, and a lot of other people have, saying, oh, why didn't we do X instead of Y, or why didn't we take this approach? But that's also seems to be, in hindsight, seems to be results driven. As I said, I think the tactics were fine, just done and undone. And sometimes a solid plan just doesn't quite come off when you get undone by the fine margins.
Well, the
And in
benchmark for many years for us has been Manchester City, and they've just gone and lost 2-1 at Bournemouth, at Brighton, and looked like they had absolutely no idea what to do when Brighton took the game by the scruff of the neck. Right, it's a week where this Premier League has got a lot of good teams in it. You're going to lose some games, and I still think, as I say, my overall impression is that is the best two teams in the Premier League that played
absolutely,
each other today by
absolutely,
a distance. That is two of the top four probably in Europe at the moment, and
yeah.
they just sometimes, unfortunately, when you've got two Goliaths, it's not the most entertaining thing watching them slug away at each other.
Well, that's the thing. People want to be entertained, and okay, fine. Yeah, we may not be the entertainers, and so therefore we get criticized for that. Why, you should be more like Liverpool and all the rest of it. But that's not us. But the thing is, this was the other narrative from yesterday. Well, unless you beat your title contenders, you're never going to win the league. Is it all of a sudden beating your title contenders? You know, is a prerequisite for winning the Premier League, or saying, oh, Arsenal are no good against top teams. Well, a couple of things. One, that's the first time in, was it 858 days? It's our first loss in 23 games against the so-called Big Six, so City, Pool, Man United, Tottenham and Chelsea. We're always going to lose that record. It's a proud record, unique record, ultimately meaningless, but also provides some context and counteracts that argument that we can't play well against big teams. In fact, our problem last season was not the big teams. It's drawing and losing, or drawing and losing some games against the sort of mid and lower teams. That was our problem. So you can't accuse Arteta of not doing that. All right, granted, we haven't won at Anfield, or haven't won at Liverpool, but you don't have to. I mean, this game, I've heard it said, and I completely agree, it's very similar to the game when we played City at home, when Martinelli scored the winner, off what's his name's face in 23-24, and very even game, but we won it, and that's what Premier League winners do. But we didn't win the Premier League that year, and Liverpool didn't beat us last year, and they won it at Cantor, and just on that, like Pep's record at Anfield: 1 win, 3 draws, 6 losses. He's done all right with the Premier League, hasn't he? So again, it's just trying to make a story without actually. And it takes two. Look, if I can bloody find some facts, Gary Neville, just hire an assistant to do some work for you, because you just sound idiotic half the time, not having done your homework, and we can see right through it. So, yeah. But I think, as I said at the beginning, until we're in the Prem, we're going to always have all these monkeys on our backs, always these narratives, and there's not a lot you can do, and it's all very binary, even though it isn't. So there we go. And look, it's the 1st of September. We're only 3 games in, and there's a long way to go. So let's see. Let's see. I'm still hopeful. I'm assuming you are too.
It's 3 fucking games, of course, mate, for you.
I know.
Yeah. Like, honestly, if anybody has had anything, like, just find some joy in your life if you've got, if you're, and actually, in fairness, the reaction I think that I saw from the majority of people, certainly those that we know, and some of the most reactionary people that I've ever chatted football with, to be honest, have been those that we know, and many of them online. The general reaction, I think, from the Arsenal community has been, no, that's all right. Like, it's not ideal. You want to win that game. The standard was to win the game, but it's Anfield. We took it close, and I do think as well. There's absolute. I don't want to downplay the merit in the conversation about our overall attacking fluidity. I just don't think this game is the one where that was. I don't think it was down to intention or about us trying to win the game or whatever. I do think there is a conversation there about we have looked less fluid in an attacking sense over the past year versus what we did for 2 years prior to that, right?
Yeah, agree.
The 3 really, 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 really good Arteta years in terms of where we've ended up in the league and what we've done in the broader spectrum of things, it was patchy this last season. So that's something that we need to work through this year. There's no doubt about that. And we've made some good signings, but There's also going to be a period of adaptation as well, because let's face it, Goykeres does look like we're going to need to do some things differently with him, and he's going to need to do some things differently for himself. Like that's something that's going to have to happen over the course of a season. But you hope that we get that all sorted over the next month or two, and then we're firing on all cylinders for the rest of the year. But there's nothing so far that I've seen that tells me that's not a potential outcome. Nothing has concerned me so much about that. I think we've got it in us to do that, to return to being as fluid as we've been previously, and to be a little bit more lethal in front of goal.
Yeah, no, I agree.
It would help
3 games in.
if we play less Martinelli, though.
Yeah. Let's see. Maybe he has a renaissance later on in this season, but there we go. And look,
he can play right back. Actually, is that like the new vogue thing? Can you just ask him give that a go? He's very expensive. He's
well, there you go.
He's got
he
a
could
little
do.
bit of the Hecky Bella in about him, maybe.
We'll see. Maybe if injuries keep coming our way, you might see him there one Saturday afternoon. So there we go. That's Liverpool. 3 games in. We'll stew on it for a couple of weeks, and then we'll come back, beat Forest, and all will be forgotten. So there we go. And so that's that. So now just a few minutes just to chat about transfers. So they said the transfer deadline day was today. Slammed shut, as I said, at 7:00. And yeah, all our business is done, and they did say it was going to be unprecedented, and and I don't think it took a while to get there. I think it's amazing. You got your hand up,
mate. Breaking news.
Oh yeah,
Edu's done us a favour.
Oh yeah,
he's taken Zinchenko off our hands.
No. Wow.
Straight loan deal, apparently, actually.
I don't care. You just take those wages off, really?
Yeah, take the wages. So, Edu,
option or
no, it says straight loan deal, but
that's fine.
Nonetheless, mate, like that's
wow.
pretty banging. Like,
fair there
play.
You go. You heard it here. I don't think I can say you heard it here first, because you'll be listening to this in about 3 hours. If you're listening to this, you'll be listening to this within 3 hours' time or the next week. And yeah, so you will heard it here last, as they say. Well, that's good. Okay, so we'll get on to outgoings. But ingoings, we've laid out about 255 million quid, about 293 euros. And look, we got, was it 9? How many? I can't even count. 8 players in. So Zubimendi for about 70 mil, Eze about 70 mil. This is euros. Goykeres 65, Madueke 56, Mosquera 15. What a bargain! That has got to be signing of the summer. That's just
Mosquera signing looks ridiculous, doesn't it?
Brilliant. Odegaard for 11. Don't know who he is. Kepa for about 6, and then we got Hincapie with a loan with I don't know if it's obligation or option, but we'll get him in next season. And look, that has been an amazing. I did not expect this at all, and it's been an amazing summer. And that's why you got to judge it at the end, not at the beginning, not in the middle. Once it's done, and I don't think
Berta rating today.
No, well, I wouldn't say the Berta rating. Well, how would you rate the transfer window out of 10, or how would you rate Berta's performance out of 10 in terms of sales?
In terms of sales?
No, in terms of incomings.
Yeah, I think incomings is always the easier one to judge, because sales, unfortunately, involves people wanting stuff, doesn't it? Which is
should and could,
the case for a lot of our players. But no, I think the incomings wise, I'm looking at it and going, I think we've addressed positions across the pitch that we needed to address, and if you had those players in the squad last season, then you feel like you probably had what you needed to go the distance in either the European Cup or the Premier League, right? Or maybe both. But you certainly would have been a lot more confident in us. So yeah, I'm delighted by it, and I think that's for me it's a 9 out of 10 probably. I think the thing that makes it the 10 is that player that you just immediately, sort of swoon over.
Is that not Eze? Oh, Eze. Sorry, we've got to call him by his proper name.
I think it's. I'm still. I think like both over the moon with it. I romanticise that signing massively. I love it, but for me, it's the least necessary signing.
Oh yeah, it's a luxury one. Yeah, I see what you mean.
In probably, you might say that's Hincapie, the left back or whatever, but certainly of the big
I know.
that you can
I know what you get. Yeah.
He is, I think, for me, the one that I look at and go, I don't know it was that necessary. You never know; he might just become.
Well,
Arsenal.
we've just been hanging Martinelli out, so I think he is necessary.
We have, but he isn't. It's not.
No, he's not an analog.
Yeah,
I know what you mean.
it
He's going to
is
give us
what it
something
is.
different.
I
Yeah.
still think
So
if I put my if I at the moment I look at it and go, I wouldn't swap him for anybody because he looks great in an Arsenal shirt and he's Arsenal through and through, and he's everything he's said and everything he's done. And as a fan, I'm like, oh god, I love this. But if I put my really captain sensible head on, might there have been a left winger out there that's a straight left winger that we could have got for 60 million quid that raised the level there. I don't actually know because I've gone through them a bunch of times, and I mean Ademola Lookman's the one that seems to be on the move that I would take in a heartbeat. I love Ademola Lookman, but that's the one thing. So it's a 9 for me, just purely because I don't think there is that. I think it's the Alexis Sanchez and Mesut Ozil. Right?
Okay. No, I get that. I'm going to go.
Bear in mind, I go very much 1 to 9s in a. If I'm ranking performances, like for example the Liverpool game, I don't give Martinelli a 4 because he was shit. I give him a 1.
Yeah.
Like,
oh wow, okay,
1 to 10 is a proper scale for me. There is no such thing.
Wow,
These silly things where people give somebody a 7 for being okay. No, that's a 5. That's the baseline.
Okay.
Right. Like so, a baseline is a 5 for me, not a 7 as people stupidly do in lots of ranking systems. There's a whole theory about that. Anyway, I won't go into it now.
No, we haven't got time. Jeez, I'm going 10. Because you could say 9, but it would have been a 10 if we got Isak. I don't think Isak was ever doable. I think that ended up being Liverpool. Also, for the fact, would we have been comfortable waiting to today to get Isak, and then you lose out on Isak potentially and Goykeres and all the rest of it. So, and I think we all said, no, let's get the business done in early. Let's get them in. Let's get going. Look what's happened to Havertz. Maybe that doesn't happen if Isak, but whatever. So I will go technical because I did not expect this, and we've raised the floor, we've raised the ceiling, we've got options everywhere. I think it's been amazing, and I did not expect this. And to say we've addressed so many positions, and you look at Kepa 5 million, Norgard 10, Mosquera 15. These are brilliant value signings, and even Goykeres now looks like a steal at 65. You compare him to Sesko and Ekitike and those guys, and then Eze coming in, Zubimendi is going to change our world.
Is there a reason for that though? Is there a reason for that though?
I don't know. We'll find out at the end of the season, but we'll see.
There's a difference between a £65 million player and an £80 million player. That's
what normally is the indicator is the wages rather than the market value.
Yeah,
and that's often the tell, but that's often like squads and all the rest. Who knows? Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. But I'm happy. No one expected this 300 million. The way we've done it, and just the way we did Eze on top of it. Just getting Eze the way we did under Tottenham's noses, it gives it a 10. That's a bonus point for that. So yeah, I'm more than happy. But that's it now for a while, and I think we'll become a club. That will sell to buy type stuff, and maybe 1 or 2. Next year's a World Cup year, so that always makes things difficult. I think this is pretty much it now, bar 1 or 2 every season based on an outgoing or something like that. So I think we've got our squad, we've laid our bed, and yes. And also, if you think about we when Waneri signed up, MLS has signed up. Big Gabby signed up. The noises around Saliba and Saka are good. So I think all round in terms of
the Saliba talk's totally disappeared, hasn't it? That's quite reassuring as it is as well. That the paper talks disappeared, and but yeah.
Exactly. So, and then look, going out. Well, it seems like we've got rid of, but we haven't got any sort of dead wood in the ground. Right? Granted, we may not have made much money. I think we've made 36 million. So Nuno Tavares to Lazio for 5, Marquinhos to Cruzeiro for 3. Then Jorginho's gone free transfer. Tierney, Partey, all free transfers. Hein on loan to Werder Bremen. Tomiyasu is out to pasture. And then today we had Lokonga go to Hamburg for 3 mil. Reece Nelson on loan to Brentford. Vieira to Hamburg, loan plus an option. And we said the Kivior Porto for 25 mil. So there isn't.
And I will just
And
update that I did quickly Google just to understand
Zinchenko.
Zinchenko. There is no point in Zinchenko having an obligation to buy or anything on him because his contract's out end of the season, isn't it?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
It still hasn't come up on Sky, so it's
So, I mean,
interesting.
it is effectively just if you're sending him off for a year, then you're basically just
That's it.
you're basically just offsetting his wages till his contract expires.
Where are you seeing that? Because I'm not seeing it on Sky yet.
So it seems that is a David Ornstein. So I'm giving.
Oh, okay.
I'm giving that one. It's an Athletic.
Okay.
And yeah, it's in the Athletic as well. So we're tier one. We're tier one.
Tier 1. Yeah, that's good. That's good. And yeah, so and got him off our books. So we've got wages of our books. We've got in a bit of money, but it wasn't. This whole narrative again, more narrative. Are we any good at selling? Yeah, basically it says we're shit at selling, and it's sort of like, I think that's the wrong question. I mean, like, if you've got if you've got things that nobody wants to buy, and people know that you want to get rid of your dead wood, and all that, you're not going to make money. The only person we made out money from was someone that people wanted, and now unfortunately he didn't want to go to a Premier League club, and otherwise we would have got another 10 mil for him. And we're in inverted commas, nice club. We treat people like humans, not like assets. And so if he wants to go to Porto because it's better for his life and his wife, we'll go, okay, we'll facilitate that. And at the end of the day, 5 million here, there is not going to make a hill of beans to us, is it? So this whole thing about being good at selling or being bad at selling it's only if you've got something to sell that people want. And you've got to take into account wages. Wages are the main
factor. We'll see it soon, though. I think that I think we'll start to see it potentially soon.
Yeah,
so you look at
absolutely.
the players that have gone out the Premier League for a decent sum of money, or moved around the Premier League for a decent sum of money. When you're a top club, and I've said this many times before, anyone who's unwanted is still unwanted. They're still going to go for cheaper, right? You don't, and a lot of the time, you're not selling players that other teams particularly want to pay a lot of money for, because if they're not making it with you, that means that they're going to be making a step down somewhere, right? But if you look at Liverpool and everybody's celebrated the way that they're selling, well, it's more that what they're doing is buying players that are pushing players who had an impact at certain times for them, further away from the team or out of the team. And that's the case with Luis Diaz or with Harvey Elliott. They're signing, Alexander Wirtz makes it that he is Harvey Elliott on speed, right? He is just so much better than Harvey Elliott probably ever will be. And so Harvey Elliott gets moved on. But Harvey Elliott wasn't a bad player. He wasn't not good enough for Liverpool. He did a really good job for him a bunch of times. We don't really have those players at this point in time. We're not bringing players in to push other players out. Now, on the other hand, though, and I would also say this for Nicholas Jackson at Chelsea, by the way, as well, who we've had many conversations about before and saying...
underrated.
Yeah. Noni Madueke actually is a good example of one of them as well. Chelsea have just signed a guy that's pushed him out. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean Noni Madueke's not good enough, because he was playing plenty for Chelsea. Just he is, he's moved on to us as a result of what's been incomings there.
Yeah.
And they've made money on him over 2-3 years, right? We will start to see that.
Yeah.
Because there will be some players who come in, and when we freshen up and go, we're going to sign this player over here, there are going to be guys, and that could be a Madueke at some point. It could well be a Goykeres. It could well be a Havertz. Havertz might be the first of them, because he's the one most under threat of being pushed out. It could be a bunch of other guys that we go, actually, no, we've gone and brought in this player, and as a result, that player's now going to move on, and they're more wanted because they were never unwanted assets.
Yeah.
They're just ultimately no longer the first choice asset. Whereas what we're looking to get rid of are guys that are nowhere near the bloody team. They are completely unwanted assets. And that's the difference. And that's the massive, you can't make...
No one's good at selling these people. Other clubs are no good at selling these people.
No, if Liverpool had, I don't know their fringe players are, but also they haven't gone through. And the reason we've accumulated a bunch of them is just how quickly we've accelerated from nowhere to being relevant again, right? United actually have had a load of them. United have had a load of them at various points in time, because they've done that yo-yo thing of being like, are we sort of contending? Are we not? Are we, and similarly as well, but we've gone really, really fast from a position where we had, Socrates and Mustafi and all that. through to making a bunch of signings that helped us get up to speed, and then surpassing past that point. And then we've just had a few of those guys, Zinchenko, Jesus is probably one of them at some stage. But,
Yeah.
a bunch of guys who've been left. Reece Nelson obviously is one. All the guys we talked about leaving, who are left completely on the sidelines and in the reserves and whatever, because we just have moved past them. And that's
So
just not a
quickly.
very common thing. It doesn't happen that often.
No, and you factor in wages, and we pay well. You put Reece Nelson on 100 grand a week. He's hard to shift, you know. So it is what it is. So I think again, it's always nuanced. I look, we can be better. Not saying we're perfect, but you've just got to understand the context with which you're dealing with. Now we have got a squad, as you said, one in, one out, and we will still be. Yeah, you know. So someone like Ben White, you know, there's Mosquera there, there's Timber there. You know, someone like him, like you said about Havertz potentially or something like that. But yeah, is that you push someone out because someone's come in, not, oh, you're dead to us, you're dead to us, we don't need you. And then, well, yeah, people know that. it's just selling anything in that mindset. And it's like, how come they do it? How come they do it? There's loads of things about it, and it's multiple people's at play. The player wants to move, maybe on crappy wages. There may be deals going on behind the scenes that we don't know about. So it's a bit like Kwanzaa going to Leverkusen. He's not 40 million, but I think, we'll overpay for Wirtz. You overpay for this. We'll go nice in the bank balance, and away we go. So I'm okay. I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. We can always do better. It'd be nice to get more money, but I can completely understand why someone like Lukonga is going for 3 million. and we're lucky to get that. So there we go. And also, we're not really a traditional selling club, and also you win something that always adds a bit of value because they're part of a winning team. But our job over the last few years has not been to sell players; it's to actually get players to have a team that we are where we are now. And now, so all of a sudden, next season after, that's where we're gonna get it. And I'm fine with it, and it doesn't seem to have impacted our business. So let's see. Just a couple of final words then on others. How scared of you are you of Liverpool now that they've got Isaac?
I mean, in a way, I'm slightly terrified. Like 265 million on two players.
Yeah.
The summer after they've won the league at a canter is a bit mental.
But they've almost spent half a billion this summer. 455.
It's absolutely insane. And Alexander Isaac is. I mean, he would have been the unicorn for me again to take us to a 10, right?
Yeah,
100%. If that comes in instead of probably any other of the players, I could maybe even swap out a Goykeres and a Hincapi for the same amount of money, for instance, and that's my unicorn player that gets us to a 10. Be interested to see how he goes. Be interested to see if he manages to stay injury free suddenly. If he does an RVP, pitches up somewhere new, and turns up in the northwest and decides that he's no longer going to get injuries anymore. That would be a thing for them. But yeah, I think he's a absolutely phenomenal signing. And I mean, what they've done is clearly they've had a bit of a let's go big this year. We've saved up the credits a little bit. We absolutely know we've got faith in Slot at this stage, and we'll go ham, and we'll put together a side that needs very little rejuvenation over the next few years. But they will need a centre half because
great. Yeah, no, I think that may be addressed in the winter window. I mean, if you compare, I think our squad is the most complete all-round squad in the Premier League. There aren't gaps. I'm saying there are no weaknesses. I'm not saying we couldn't be better, but if you look at that squad, we've got cover in quality cover in every position: young, old, experienced, fresh. If we're all fully fit, it's amazing. So I think we've got the best squad. I think Liverpool have clearly gone for we'll outscore you approach in terms of what they've done. But I think their midfield and defence can be got at. We've seen that, and how sustainable is their approach, and they've got 70 odd games to play this season, like a bit like us. So they're relying on a 34-year-old centre back, to be their main man, and how long's that going to last? You're relying on Isaac, who's only completed one full season in 3 over the last 3 years and stuff. So
I don't think they are relying on Isaac is the problem, unfortunately.
well,
I think they've got enough
maybe not.
talent without him, but
Yeah,
that's a world of excess. I think in certain respects,
But yeah, there's only so many they can have on the pitch at one time, and we'll see. So look, yeah, it's the season we go massive. Liverpool just go massiver, if there's such a word. And but we'll see. It's a long season. There's lots of games. Let's just see how the squads hold up. So it's and look, it's going to be exciting. It's going to be. I think we are the best two squads, the best two teams in the Premiership. So it's going to be an interesting challenge. Wissa's gone to Newcastle as a result. Colin Morani today went to Spuds from PSG. Donnarumma at City, which is an interesting pivot in terms of how he likes his goalkeepers. Elliot, you were talking about.
I would love if he pitches up and starts doing Petr Cech things with the ball at his feet. You know what I mean? Like, it would just be phenomenal. But I mean, we're great evidence of how good a goalkeeper he is. Because to be fair, I think he probably was in the end. I mean, he was a very large palm in the way of us making a European Cup final, wasn't he? So.
He was the difference. So look, teams are strengthened. Some teams more than others. Some teams they look good on paper. We'll see. It's settling in. But I think it's us and Liverpool. Chelsea are thereabouts. But yeah. So let's just see. It's now the real football can start. We can stop talking about transfers and we can just get on with it. Everyone's settled, and we can get on with. We know we're dealing with, and that's it. And what we're dealing with in the next couple of weeks is an international break. The main thing is who's going to come back in an ambulance. And other than that, it may come at a good time for us because with the Saka injury, with the Havertz injury, it just kills a couple of weeks that they don't need to play. Let's see what happens to Odegaard. Hopefully they'll send them back home. But who knows with their manager? He seems to be a bit of a cock. But yeah, so we'll see. We'll see what happens. But yeah, it's the usual thing. Fingers crossed, and there we go. So that's that. Another doozy, 90 minutes. If you're still here, well done. Thank you. Breaking news, 3 days old. So there you go. So Jamie, thank you as ever.
Thank you very much, Tams.
That was good fun. I enjoyed that, and I do, as I said at the beginning, problem shared, and I feel a lot better for it, for sure. So the next show, we've got something special lined up for Friday. I know Jamie is particularly excited about that, but we'll keep that under wraps. And
let me just say, I don't think the biggest question of the international window has yet been asked. So I don't think it has.
No, it hasn't. But let's see. Let's see if we can get A into G and sort that out. So, but yeah, it should be something different, a bit of fun to keep us ticking over during international break. So keep an eye out for that on Friday, the weekend. Look, if you enjoy what you hear from us, you can follow us on Threads, Blue Sky, X, TikTok, Insta, whatever other social media that I'm learning as we speak. And you can find us at the Grove AFC. Rate, like, subscribe, all that jazz. Much appreciated. And that's taken me to 93 minutes. So, yeah, really, thank you if you're still here for listening. I know who you are. And until the next time, come on, you Gunners.